Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fungus News. This is week 7 of the Cobalion division. There were some pretty interesting matchups this week. I will say, though, that this week overall wasn't the most entertaining, um, but it is, of course, a very, very important week. This is where it's make or break. If you lose now, you're much less likely to make playoffs. I was very clear about that. Now, our first matchup was a pretty much a, a juggernaut of the season versus definitely a team that has been struggling so far. The Ellesmere Eternals, coached by Kung Fu Panda, versus the Virginia Verbravas, coached by Jeremy. Now, like I said, the Ellesmere Eternals have been pretty much perfect. Other than that first loss that they've suffered all the way back in week 1, they've won all of their matches, while the Verbravas have only won one match so far. And it really reflected in the match as the Ellesmere Eternals pretty much just dominated with their team of Zacian, uh, Landorus Incarnate, Serena, Darkrai, Kelio, and Metagross, while the Virginia Bravas brought a team of Iron Treads, Primarina, Raichu, Chien-Pao, Archaludon, and finally Malamar. Now the Ellesmere Eternals were able to start off pretty strong, able to, unfortunately, but did miss a Power Whip, which would have done a lot of damage to the Raichu. Um, After a few switches, both of them were able to get up rocks, and a Malamar versus Metagross was in play. Malamar went for the Trick Room and was actually able to will down the Metagross back all the way down to low HP, but the Keldeo actually had Vacuum Aim, so it was able to revenge kill the Malamar even in Trick Room. So it was a pretty good. So it was already starting off just by turn 8. Already two Pokemon were down. Primarina came in, however, was unable to really do anything to the Keldeo, who was Terra Water. Did do a lot of damage with the Moonblast, but Surf did a lot more damage to the Primarina. And then for some reason, the Verbravas decided to switch in their Archaludon, which took 80% um, from a Surf, and then died to the oncoming Vacuum Wave. At first, Raichu came in, which scared off the Keldeo into the Landorus, but of course, the Nuzzle that came in was ineffective. Landorus was then able to pick up the kill against the Raichu. Raichu was able to do a lot of damage, and then afterwards, the Verbravas once again make a mistake with the Iron Treads, deciding to opt to Rapid Spin, which wasn't able to pick up the kill against Landorus. Chien-Pao does come in afterwards and is able to finally kill off the Landorus, but at this point it's a 4-2 deficit, and Zacian has absolutely no answers to it. That Chien-Pao is very low, and not very low. Chien-Pao will not take a hit from Zacian for sure, and the Primarina is way too low at 90% and is unable to take a hit from the Zacian. So a very dominant win from the Ellesmere Eternals. Just able to kind of just whittle down the opponent's team and just make the right plays here and there. The Bravos were already kind of not going to make playoffs anyways. I don't think it is possible to make with a 3-5 record, but you have to have a lot of teams that just lose, and this is not that division. But yeah, the Ellesmere Eternals pretty much confirm their playoff spot and also kind of confirm themselves to get a bye in the playoffs, which is really, really good for them. So congratulations to the Ellesmere Eternals. Now they aren't confirmed it, but it is a very, very likely. Our next matchup was played between the legendary Landorus, coached by Cake, versus the Defenders of Stoliwrath, coached by Staniel. The legendary Landorus have been pretty solid this season, only having one loss back in week 3. Well, the Stoliwraths have had a very strong start to their season, however, have slowed down considerably, having lost the last two. So they're going to be looking to get a big win. However, unfortunately, the legendary Landorus were able to pick up this win 4-0. They brought a team of Mewtwo, Komala, Reshiram, Urshifu, Single Strike, Avalugg, Hisuian, and finally Pheasantipede, while the Defenders of Stoliwrath brought a team of Hatterene, Overquill, Ursaluna, Giratina Origin, Milotic, and finally Ogerpon Cornerstone. Both players started off trying to get their hazards up, but were unable to do so actually, as they both Stan decided to switch out, while Avalugg went for Body Press. After a few switches, it came down to a Giratina versus Reshiram matchup, and Reshiram was actually able to do big damage to the Hatterene who came in, bringing it all the way down to 36%. Was also able to do some big damage to the Milotic, showing that most likely Reshiram is choice specs. It's doing a lot of damage. Milotic was able to recover off the damage, but this did bring in the Mewtwo, which is a very scary Pokemon, of course, which is able to set up a substitute. And was actually able to kill off not one but two Pokemon. Both the Overquill and the Hatterene both fell to the Mewtwo. So this would lead to the legendary Landorus already starting off with a 6-4 lead by turn 10. Giratina was able to come in, but was unable to do anything as the Komala came in and was able to take the Shadow Ball. Did take a lot of damage from a oncoming Draco Meteor, but this did allow the Komala to U-turn into Reshiram and putting even more pressure onto the Stoliwrath. Milana came in but was two-shot by a Draco Meteor, and then Ogerpon did come in and was able to threaten out the Reshiram and then U-turn, or did it U-turn out? Did not U-turn out, it was just a very good double switch on the part of the Stoliwrath, but wasn't able to really do anything as Cake was just able to kind of switch around. But to be fair, did actually, no, Giratina was actually able to do some big damage to the Pheasantipiti with Earthquake. But then sacked off their Komala, and afterwards Reshiram came in once again, threatening to kill the Giratina and just let it die to a Dragon Pulse. Afterwards, the Ursaluna was actually able to pick off the Pheasantipiti, but Avalugg was just too much for the Ursaluna to handle. It was killed off by the Avalugg, and then afterwards the Ogerpon was also unable to deal enough damage to the Avalugg, as it of course is a physical attacker. So a very good win by the Legendary Landers. Pretty much have obviously confirmed themselves a spot in the playoffs. They already kind of have with 5 wins. But this does give them a better chance of getting the bye in week 2, and to be fair, probably gives them the bye in week 2 just off of that win alone. So good job to the Legendary Landers. They've been excellent so far this season, and the Stoliwraths are really going to have to pick it up in this final week. Our third matchup of the week is the London Vespiquen, coached by Jake, versus the Philadelphia Smeargles, coached by Fungus. London Vespiquens have had their first legitimate win last week, being able to. So far their team has proven to be quite effective, at least for now. While the Smeargles were looking to bounce back after a devastating loss last week. Now, to be fair, even though the London Vespiquens did get a nice team upgrade, unfortunately that will not be enough against the Smeargles. The London Vespiquens brought a team of Ho-Oh, Virizion, Galarian Slowbro, Slowking, Meowscarada, Hisuian Samurott, and finally Terapagos, while the Smeargles brought a team of Fluttermane, Noivern, Ogerpon Heartflame, Hisuian Quillfish, Dialga Origin, and finally Electabuzz. First time we see Electabuzz, actually. So overall, both of them brought some pretty solid Pokemon, but they actually started off. The Smeargle started off strong as they were able to lead off with their Electabuzz against the opponent's Hisuian Samurott. This would lead to the Hisuian Samurott going down all the way to 5%. Now, to be fair, the Electabuzz did take a lot of damage from a Ceaseless Edge, but did also take a lot of damage and was paralyzed. So this allowed the Smeargles to bring in their Fluttermane and kill off the Samurott pretty early in turn 2. Slowking did come in afterwards and did scare out the Fluttermane, but and actually the Smeargles had the intentions of sacking off their Electabuzz, but was unable to do so actually because the Vespiquens brought in Virizion. As Virizion went for Swords Dance, the Electabuzz switched out, and Hisuian Quillfish came in, intimidating the Swords Dancing Virizion. So Virizion could become scary. However, Virizion was Terra Fairy, so it was unable to really take any hits from this Quillfish, and wasn't able to do really all that much damage, actually. Terra Blast only doing around 28%, and Quillfish was able to just take the hits and fire back some Barb Barrages, killing off the Virizion. Ho-Oh came in, but was also unable to kill off the Quillfish with an Earthquake, and Quillfish was actually able to get back all of its HP with a Pain Split. This would allow the Quillfish to then set up a layer of spikes, and then the Fluttermane came in, which was actually able to kill off the Ho-Oh with a Power Gem. Afterwards, Slowking came in and was unable to do anything really to this Fluttermane. Was able to poison it, however, which would actually allow the Terapagos that came in to finish off the Fluttermane, who had been going on a pretty much a tear at this point, killing off so many of the Vespiquen Pokemon. But this would allow Dialga Origin to come in and kill off the Terapagos with a Draco Meteor. Meowscarada came in but was unable to do much damage because it just missed. It just straight up missed, and Draco Meteor was able to finish off the Meowscarada. So because of that, the Smeargles were able to pick up their fourth win of the season. So they give themselves a chance of making playoffs next week. While the London Vespiquen, unfortunately, this would mean the end of their season. If they won this week and they won the next week, they might have been able to make playoffs, but unfortunately, this does mean the end of their season. Our next matchup is the Kerry Wisps, coached by Don Bozo, versus the Michigan Manectrics, coached by Tog. Now, Tog had already pretty much confirmed to not make playoffs with a 1-5 record, but the Kerry Wisps were still looking to clinch their spot in the playoffs. It's a pretty close playoff season so far. A lot of people are actually at 3-3. So every team was looking for pretty much any win that they could get. And thankfully for the Kerry Wisp, they were actually able to pick up a win with their team of Sandy Shocks, Magearna, Sneasler, Blastoise, Uxie, and finally Dragapult, while the Michigan Manectrics brought a team of Maushold, Zekrom, Glimmora, Mew, Dusknoir, and finally Araquanid. Now it started off pretty interesting as the Glimmora was able to do some big damage to the Sneasler. But afterwards, it kind of came down to a crawl. The Blastoise was trying to threaten to get rid of this webs that Araquanid brought out. After a few turns, the Dusknoir took a bit of damage, but and also the same with the Araquanid. The Araquanid then did some pretty good damage actually to the Blastoise, doing 30% with the Liquidation. I know Araquanid can do a lot of damage with Liquidation. I know firsthand. But it was able to get rid of the webs. Surprisingly enough, the Araquanid actually didn't try to set him back up. I felt as though that probably was the better play, but and surprisingly enough, the Dragapult went for Acrobatics, which actually which killed off the Araquanid, which was a very, very good play from the Carrots. A very good bring too. Then switched out as the Mew came in. Mew was Terra Steel, so it's not like the Dragapult probably didn't have anything major to do damage to a Terra Steel Mew, but the Sandy Shocks does for sure, but was scared out by the Trick Room that Mew actually went for. Dusknoir then came in, but was actually unable to do really all that much with the Trick Room, doing very little damage to Magearna, who actually had Pain Split, which was a very good bring again from the Kerry Wisps. This would kind of keep going as Mew was encored as it went for Calm Mind. And just more switches happen. Pain Split from Magearna. Another Calm Mind from Mew, but was just switched out again. Even though it was able to get a Calm Mind without being encored this time. Magearna came in against the Glimmora. Glimmora was unable to do anything and was killed by two Psychic. Actually, no, not killed by two Psychic Noises. Just switched out, took a lot of damage, switched out. Really, the Kerry Wisps are just playing very, very well here. Definitely helps that they don't have any hazards on their side of the field. There's not really anything that happens for a lot of turns. However, after a few turns, Kerry Wisps finally decide to Terra their Sandy Shocks, which kills the Dusknoir. Maushold comes in, but is unable to do any damage as Dragapult was able to switch in on the Population Bomb and scared it out while going for U-turn. Once again, Sandy Shocks is able to pick up a kill against the Glimmora with a Earth Power. Maushold comes in again, but is unable to do... Actually, is able to set up a Tidy Up, but the Sneasler that comes in is actually Scarfed, which means it was able to kill it off. Then Sneasler, once again, is able to do some big damage to Zekrom with close combat, but is killed off by a Bolt Strike. However, this would lead the Manectrics team way too weak against the Sandy Shocks, as both of the remaining Pokemon are weak against Earth Power, and both of them also go down to Earth Power. So a very good performance by Kerry Wisps. We're able to get a nice 5-0 victory, which would put them in a much better spot for playoffs potentially going forward. So they're not as likely to lose their playoff spot if they lose their last match. So good on them. Our fifth matchup of the week is once again two teams that are 3-3. Um, the Russian Rapidash coached by Martin versus the Santa Maria Absols coached by Felix. Now, both of these teams, of course, needed to get a nice win here to try and get themselves in a better spot for playoffs. So they were both, of course, bringing their A game. And it really did show in the match as even though both of them have pretty major threats, there wasn't really any kills until there was any Pokemon going down until very very later on. I mean, I'm clicking through the match right now, and there hasn't been a kill until turn 20, turn 25 either. They're just kind of switching out their Pokemon, just trying to get some better opportunities. Now, during this, I will say the Santa Maria Absols do make a mistake with their Alamomola, taking a lot of damage and leaving it on against the opponent's Bramblegast, which was very, very surprising. I actually forgot to mention what each party is bringing. The Russian Rapidashes are bringing a team of Greninja, Deoxys, Komodo, Skeledirge, Clodsire, and finally Bramblegast, while the Santa Maria Absols bring a team of Tinglu, Iron Valiant, Lunala, Garganackle, Alomomola, and then finally Cyclizar. And again, like I said, just not much action going on. Just both of them kind of trying to switch into better positions. But to be fair, it is very clear that the Russian Rapidashes do have a bit of a defensive edge against the, surprisingly enough, this very hyper defensive team that is the Santa Maria Absols. Um, and this would again lead to no kills happening until all the way until turn 35. However, a mistake from the Santa Maria Absols whirlwinding the Brambleghast, which does have Wind Rider, is able to get a +1 attack, which would lead to both not only the Garganackle dying on turn 38, but also the Lunala, which was a big mistake from the Santa Maria Absols, especially since they had access to Shadow Sneak Iron Valiant. Um, Now, finally, the Brambleghast did go down, but Skeldridge was able to come in and scare out the Iron Valiant and was able to kind of just chip away at the opponent's team, just not really allowing the Santa Maria Absols to make a comeback. I mean, Skeldridge just sits here for forever and is actually able to finish off the match by turn 48. Pretty much, Brambleghast just opened up the position, and the Skeldridge just took advantage of it. A very long matchup, a very good matchup to be fair, with a major mistake by the Santa Maria Absols. Actually, two major mistakes, but still a good matchup nonetheless. Both teams played rather well. Last but not least, our final matchup of the week and my personal match of the week. Again, saying week a lot, and a very good one actually. This week had a very, I wouldn't say a very interesting lineup of matches, but this one really did stand out, as it was the um, Trondheim Rosenspors, coached by Hydra, versus the All-Seeing, coached by Renaland. Now, I did mess up the records here, but the Trondheim Rosenspors did pick up a very good win last week, and we're looking to try and keep that win streak alive against the All-Seeing. But the All-Seeing have had a very strong season so far. I'm just picking up a few losses here and there, but to be fair, have been mostly winning. They were 4-2 with I think a +5 differential, so they've been very solid this season. And really, the matchup really did portray that, really did show that both of these players were looking to get this win. I mean, Thwacky, each player brought a team of Zamazenta, Spectrier, Hydrapple, Excadrill, Bronzong, and finally Sylveon. That's the Trondheim Rosensports teams. And then the All-Seeings brought a team of Lugia, Kyurem, Black, Zapdos, Thwacky, Grafify, and finally Mimikyu. And like I said, this matchup was very interesting. Immediately off the bat, Thwacky is obviously able to set up its grassy terrain, while the Excurgil is able to set up hazards, and Grafify actually shows up with Grassy Siege, meaning that it's most likely going to be unburdened. It's actually able to set up a Sword Stance, which is able to do some pretty big damage to this Hydrapple. However, Hydrapple is able to kill off the Grafify before it's able to do much more. Lugia comes in and scares it out, but then Spectrier comes in and shows Disable. Well, Disable Spectrier, which is an insane bring. Very, very smart considering Lugia is such a massive threat. Is able to also set up its own Calm Minds as well, which is very, very good. But is unable to really do much as Lugia is just so bulky, is unable to do that much damage, but is able to actually scare it out. Now it is able to, now the Zapdos does come in, actually Mimikyu comes in first, but then was actually using eject button, I think, actually, which is, yeah, eject button, which is a very, very solid bring, actually, which brings in the Galarian Zapdos, which is Terra Dark, which scares out the Spectrier, and is able to knock off the Rocky Helmet, which is very good. Afterwards, Mimikyu does come back in against the Hydrapple and is Light Screen. So the Hydrapple's not able to do much damage against this Mimikyu. Mimikyu's able to set up another Light Screen before it dies. And Thwackey comes in and is able to scare off the +4 Hydrapple. So a lot of the lower tier mons that Renelin has are putting in a lot of work here. Isn't really able to do much damage though with the Grassy Glide against the Excadrill. Excadrill is able to scare out the Thwackey, but is then killed off by a close combat from the Zapdos. Zapdos then switches out after the Spectrier comes in. Shadow Ball does do some decent damage to the Thwackey, but to be fair, a knockoff, and also the Thwackey is actually able to knock off the Lumberry from Zamazenta, and for some reason, Zamazenta has Bite. I don't know why, but it does. Instead of Crunch, it has Bite. Probably for flinches, I'm guessing is the reason. But to be fair, I'm not gonna lie, Enghydra, if you need to use Bite to deal with a Lugia, you're in trouble. But anyways, is once again another thing to deal with this Lugia. He has Imprison to try and not have the Lugia just deal with it. And once again, another Lugia counter in Sylveon, who is able to set up some Calm Minds and is able to do some big damage to this Kyurem Black, but is unable to kill it, unfortunately, which does lead to the Bronzong going down. Spectrier then comes in and revenge kills the Kyurem, but is then scared off by these Galarian Zapdos, which Hydrapple does come back in. The Hydrapple is able to finish off the Zapdos, but then Lugia comes in and once again is able to set up some Calm Minds. The Sylveon is able to roar out the Lugia, but to be fair, this wouldn't really last very long, as, to be fair, there's only one Pokemon that Renelin has, and it does go down to the Sylveon. Now, Sylveon does switch out as it was Leech Seeded, but once again, the same song and dance happens, and at this point, it is basically a match of who gets the crit first, and really, it does kind of favor the Lugia. And because of that, Lugia is able to finish off the Sylveon. Sylveon doesn't have any form of reliable recovery. Its most reliable recovery is Draining Kiss, and it actually was running out, so Lugia was going to win that 1v1. And then Lugia is able to finish off the last two Pokemon. So, and Hydra almost pulled off yet another upset. Brought some really interesting sets this week, but was unfortunately, I mean, Lugia is just such a good Pokemon. I mean, this thing, I ain't gonna lie, I'm not gonna lie, Lugia is just so good. It's 22 points. It's one of the cheaper Ubers, but it is just so good. It was way too cheap. This thing is a menace. But anyways, that was my match of the week. It was a fantastic matchup. Could be a contender for match of the season, to be honest. If I'm being to be honest, so yeah, it was just such a solid matchup. And finally, my favorite segment of the week, the kill leaders. Now, first off, we have in 10th place well, not a new appearance. We've seen Reshiram before, but it hasn't shown up since I think week 1, or maybe week 2 was one of the two. But either way, it's been picking up kills silently, like for the last few weeks, and actually hasn't died 0 times. It's only played 4 games, so out of all of the Pokemon in the top 10, it's been brought the least, which is surprising because it's one of their Ubers. But to be fair, the Legendary Landers just have an insane team. Next up, we have the Santa Maria Absol's Garganacle. I think this thing was in third place last week, and it's dropped down significantly. It did pick up a death this week, wasn't able to pick up any kills. It has played 7 matches, and is at a +5 differential. Next up, we have the Ellesmere Eternals Darkrai, 9 kills, 2 deaths, and a +7 differential. Just hasn't been doing all that much in the past few weeks. Um, just been picking up a kill here and there. I don't think it picked up any kills this week, however, so that's why it's dropped pretty significantly. I think it was in 5th before. Next up, we have the Carry Wisps Sandy Shocks. Once again, kind of like Reshiram, I think we've seen this thing before, but it was a while ago. With 9 kills, 2 deaths, a +7 differential, and 6 games played, it was able to bring itself all the way up to 7th with its 4 kills this week, which is actually the Pokemon with the most kills done this week. So good job on the Carry Wisps for that. Next up, we have the Ellesmere Eternals Landorus Incarnate. I'm pretty sure this thing was here last week. Was able to pick up 2 kills this week as well, bringing its total up to 10 kills, 4 deaths, +6 differentials, and 7 games played. Next up, we have the Legendary Landorus once again with 10 kills, 3 deaths, +7 differential, and 7 games played with their Mewtwo. Was able to pick up 2 kills this week, so it went up from 8 to 10, making it so that it was actually able to stay. So right now, currently, if you're at 8 kills, it's not enough. You need to have at least 9 or 8 with 0 deaths, which is what Reshiram has. Next up, we have the Russian Rapidash's Skeledirge. Very defensive Pokemon. It was here last week. I'm not gonna lie, I did not think it was gonna stick around, and I did not think it was going to actually move up. With 10 kills, 2 deaths, and a +8 differential, this thing has been an absolute menace, showing why, unless you have Ubers, you probably shouldn't be allowing high tier Terra. This thing has been very troublesome for pretty much every single team it's faced. Next up, we have in third place the Philadelphia Smeargles Fluttermane with 12 kills, 6 deaths, +6 differentials, and 7 games played. All the way from 5th to 3rd. Obviously, a drop off still from their first place dominance for a few weeks, but still, you can't be too upset about it. It was able to bring itself back up. Was able to pick up 3 kills this week, the most kills it's picked up since for a while at least. So good on these Philadelphia Smeargles for that. Next up, we have the All-Seeings Galarian Zapdos with 12 kills, 3 deaths, +9 differentials, and 7 games played. Pretty sure this thing was last week's number 1. It was able to pick up just 1 kill, but also pick up a death as well, which is why it is currently sitting in 2nd place instead of 1st. And in 1st place is also the All-Seeings Lugia. I mean, number 1 and number 2 is absolutely insane, but very well deserved, as Lugia has been going on an absolute tear, which is why I think it should have been more expensive, but oh well. What can you do? 12 kills, 2 deaths, a +10 differentials with 7 games played. This thing has been just picking up lots of comeback sweeps. I mean, if you don't have a way of dealing with Lugia, it's never going to die. It's just never going to die. That's just what Lugia does. So yeah, it's been very solid this week. And finally, our Mon of the week. Now, to be fair, there wasn't any big standout Pokemon. There was a Sandy Shocks who was able to pick up 4 kills. A lot of other Pokemon that picked up 3 kills like Fluttermane and stuff like that, but I decided to go with a bit of an unorthodox pick. I decided to go with the Skeledirge from the Russian Rapidashes. This thing pretty much sat on the field for like 15 turns in a row and basically just ended the match. It was just very solid the entire time. It was almost unkillable, really. I'm not gonna lie. I think even if the Russian Rapidashes didn't even have the rest of their team, like 4 of the Pokemon or 5 of the Pokemon just couldn't do anything against the Skeledirge. The Skeledirge was just so good the entire time. And again, like I said, it pretty much sat on the field for 15 turns in a row and just never died, and pretty much finished off the match on its own. Of course, it did have help from some of his teammates, mainly the Ramblegas, which I actually did consider giving Mon of the Week, considering it got 2 incredibly important kills, but I felt as though Skeledirge also just deserved to get Mon of the Week. And to be fair, it's been Martin's ace throughout the entire season, so definitely deserves this reward here. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you at week 8.